All right, let's dive in. Today we're talking about a civilization so advanced, it basically treats physics like a computer code. So I want you to forget everything you think you know about the laws of nature, because for the Orion star empire, those laws aren't just meant to be followed. They're meant to be rewritten. So let's just start with a question that gets right to the heart of everything they're about. What if you, personally, could literally rewrite the rules of your own universe? Now for us, that sounds like pure fantasy, right? But for the Orion star empire, this isn't some daydream. It's the logical, inevitable conclusion when you combine technology and consciousness. And this brings us to their most fundamental concept, the reality authorship principle. The idea is actually pretty simple, but it is incredibly profound. It's this: if you can define the basic rules of any system, you can control its outcome. But they don't just apply this to software or politics. Oh no, they apply it to the very fabric of space-time itself. Okay, so the tech that makes all this possible is something they call associative superposition. You know how in sci-fi you hear about quantum shifting, the idea that you can exist in multiple realities at once and just pick the one you want? Well, this is kind of like that, but for them, it's an incredibly precise tool for editing the world around them in real time. And here is where things get truly wild. The OSE believes that the part of our human brain that struggles with moral uncertainty, that murky, gray area between right and wrong, it operates on the exact same physical principles as quantum mechanics. To them, the fuzzy, undecided state of a particle before you look at it is the same thing as the fuzzy state of a tough moral choice before you make it. Your inner world and the outer universe, they're not just connected, they're running on the same hardware. This quote right here perfectly explains what they call moral time travel. Look at the first sentence. Stealing is a desperate consequence of starvation. But in the second one, starvation becomes a twisted tool to justify stealing. The actions are the same, starving, stealing, but the order of operations changes everything. For the OSC, this isn't just an ethics lesson, it's a physical law. Order matters. So you're probably asking, how in the world does a philosophical rule about morality translate into hard science and engineering? Well, let's take a look at how the OSC actually engineers physics itself. This is where the theory gets very, very real. Right off the bat, they just turn our modern physics completely on its head. We believe the Higgs field gives particles mass. The OC says, nope, you've got it backwards. For them, the Higgs field is more like a cosmic gatekeeper. It's the precise boundary where pure potential, what they call coherent thought, is finally allowed to collapse and become solid, physical matter. It is literally the line where an idea becomes a thing. And when you start thinking like that, you can build some absolutely incredible things. Case in point, their crowning achievement, the laser star. You can think of a normal star, like our sun, as a chaotic, screaming crowd of people. But a laser star? That's like a perfectly synchronized choir. All the energy inside is phase-locked, moving in perfect, beautiful harmony. This creates a state where energy and matter are all mixed up together, kind of like the universe was in the first few moments after the Big Bang. So here's the breakdown of how that works. By keeping all that energy perfectly in sync, they can actually delay the moment it collapses and hardens into regular particles with mass. And this leads to their biggest breakthrough, conditional inertia. This means they can create things that have enormous energy but don't really have mass. It's like having the destructive power of a cannonball without any of the weight. You can imagine how that would completely revolutionize, well, everything. To try and bring this concept down to Earth, think about the very strange, very real phenomenon of ball lightning. The OSC would look at that and say, see, that's it. That's a tiny, naturally occurring example of what we do on a stellar scale. It's just a little pocket of energy that achieves enough coherence to pretend to be a solid object, just for a moment. So what happens when a civilization that can literally engineer stars decides to start engineering itself? Well, they apply the exact same principles to their social structure. But their ultimate goal? It might not be what you think. You see, they've completely abandoned truth as their main guiding principle. Their argument is that truth can be messy, subjective, and lead to conflict. So instead, they pursue beauty. And they define beauty as a perfect, measurable symmetry between your inner world, your thoughts and morals, and the outer world. And this isn't just some poetic idea, it's a physical force, one that's embodied by their living emperor, whose personal harmony literally holds the entire empire together. This whole philosophy creates two completely different classes of technology. The elite class uses something called psychotronics. You can think of it as feed-forward control. It works by shaping reality itself, setting a perfect, beautiful expectation, and letting the universe conform to that vision. But the working class, they use cybernetics. That's a feedback system. It just measures what's actually happening in the real world and reacts to it. It's practical. It's based on truth. And this tech divide leads to a social structure that is just completely alien to us. At the top, you have the elite, who rule by being flawless moral examples. Then you have the working class, made up of citizens who are basically healing from past trauma through structured work. And the middle class, the engine of our entire society, it's just gone, completely abolished. Its members are forced into these retirement communities where they're not allowed to work or compete for anything.
Okay, so from engineering, physics, and society, we're about to go even deeper because the OSE sees consciousness itself as just another system to be understood and engineered, all part of a vast cosmic ecology. They have this concept called entropic species, and it is a weird one, so stick with me. They believe that things we think of as abstract processes, like an ecosystem or your immune system or even the act of thinking itself, are actually living organisms. These aren't life forms that eat food. They're life forms that feed on the flow of energy and information, creating order out of chaos simply to exist. Let's run through some of their examples. A beaver dam, which engineers its own little ecosystem. That's an entropic species. Your immune system, which builds a habitat for your cells. That's one too. They even say that mind itself is a species that feeds on that aha moment when confusion crystallizes into understanding. It gets weirder. They'd classify undeath, like zombies, as a species, which is then preyed upon by another species they call true death. And here's the one that's really going to make you think. Your smartphone. They'd call it a camouflaged smart bug, a hive species living in perfect symbiosis with us. And looking at the world through this lens, the OSC claims to have concrete, scientific proof of the soul. They call it the emotional matrix. To them, it's a real mathematical construct passed down from your parents that serves as the solid foundation for your individual consciousness. So, where is all of this going? Engineering physics, redesigning society, redefining life itself? What is the ultimate endgame? Well, it is breathtakingly ambitious. Their goal is, in a way, simple, but it is absolutely staggering: to achieve physically real, infinite growth. And I don't mean that as some economic theory. I mean it's a galactic-scale engineering project. They truly believe it's possible to build an eternal universe, a closed loop in space-time where time itself repeats forever and ever. And of course, they have a plan. It starts with cloud cities floating on Venus. Then, they build planetary-scale plasma rails for transport. From there, it gets bigger. Mass-produced orbital platforms become the main units of their economy. Then, they build a particle accelerator the size of our entire solar system. And the final step? The end game? They plan to engineer a donut-shaped black hole to literally bend space-time into an infinite loop. Which, of course, brings us to our final thought. The Orion star empire operates on a scale so vast, it really challenges our most basic definitions. So I'll leave you with this question. When you possess the technology to rewrite physics and literally build infinity, what really is the difference between an engineer and a god?